Hey guys, Sam back with you here. So we're midday here, Tuesday, January 30th, and I've got Ethereum here. This was the next selection from members for a video review. Now I've got this is the 4-hour in log scale on Bitfinex. Just to mix it up, this just happens to be where I'm trading it. So this Bitfinex here on the 4-hour, and in log scale, right? So you can see the difference here. So if we go out of log scale, I just like the separation that I get here from log scale. So if we look at this and think, okay, so if I've got a hard 2, right? So on the very largest degree. So if I bring this up here, if we're working this as a 1-2. I got to go back a little bit to get all the way down to where we started. I mean, we go all the way to the very beginning. The lowest low here was what, $5? So it distorts your when you look at it. You distort when you're in log view. You got to understand this is going to distort that view. But you can see here. So here was the 2, and we know the 2 can go as deep as the 786. We get a pop through the golden zone there, but that's where we take off from. So it's certainly. You can look at this and say, well, I mean, it's hard to argue with that as a 1-2. It's hard to find another count that you could play that out. So really the question is, have we topped here? So if I pull this off, and we're working from this 2, so I'm wicking off the 1s here just for reference. Then we get another 1. So if we're playing 1 and a 2, 3, here's the deepest correction here. So now this is tricky. So what we're seeing here, so let me zoom in on that a little bit. So if we've got 1, 2, 3, here's the 4, and then up we go here. Have we topped? Right. So if you were just looking at this, coming to this chart fresh, and you brought that up, right? Forget that it's Ethereum. What do you see? I mean, it's hard to argue with that 3-wave structure there. Now, it's not resolved yet. We still have the potential leg there, but first glance. I mean, to some degree, I guess you can make the case that you have mixed messages here because this proved to be an interesting tell. So this is what you would expect to see from an Elliott perspective. If we're going to get a 1-2, big 3, impulsive 3, the 4 does not overlap the 1. So that's the first clue that we'd been operating with under the assumption that the 4 was in and we were going up to put in a 5. All right, and potentially that being the 5. Right, so here's in the larger degree, 1, 2. We were looking for the 5 of 3. Right, so something along those lines down for the 4 and then up again to resolve and complete that largest degree 5-wave structure. But I mean, so you're getting kind of in. I mean, it's starting to look like Bitcoin, right? So all of the ingredients were there for a 1-2, off we go, and then we even had subdivisions. So let me zoom in on this so we can see it a little bit better. So all of this, so that to the tick, right? Again, that is not random, right? So that's clearly algo's by it there. So we don't overlap the 1. So and all of this was quite technical. So you might look at this and go, well, why is the 4 there? Well, that's a judgment call. We're doing this with the benefit of hindsight. So my premise is that we've got an A wave, a B wave, and then we get that shallow C that we've been experiencing in crypto. Certainly we saw it all through 2017. But then you look and say, well, wait a minute. That the expectation would be, because you could make the case that you had an A, B, C down here. But I think this plays better because of what follows. So if that's our 4 low, and it's the crypto triangle with the shallow C, then this becomes our 1-2. So let's look at that. And if we measure that on the assumption that this is our 4 and we're going up for our 1, what do we get? We get a 2 right to the golden pocket. Not only that, look at where we are in the Vegas wave. Just, whoops. Right into the pocket there. So A, B, C, down for the 2, and then there's the big impulse. Well, you have to look at that and say, well, wait a minute. What about this? Doesn't that make sense as well? Well, that's certainly the contender. So what makes you think otherwise than that? The only thing that makes you rethink that is the fact that we pivot here at the 1 high. So which makes you think, well, perhaps I've got another leg up here. So it's hard to call that right now because either one could play out and not invalidate either until we start breaking down here. Instead, we break this low, now we got another story. But right now, this still potentially, you've had this opportunity for a 1, 2, Or, right, so note here what happens with this 4. You have the other opportunity that maybe you've got this repeating pattern here, where we get the big sharp A wave, B wave, then down for the C. So this has been it's an alternate, right? So you have to keep multiple counts here so that you don't get locked into one view, which is why I always suggest that it's a good idea to just come at it fresh. Take everything off, all of the detail, and just look at the major pivots. What is that likely to be telling you? Well, what we're seeing here is 3 waves. So if this were going to be a 1-2, if we're playing as 1, 2, this has to be our 3. Well, we've already overlapped here the 1. So it can't be an impulse wave. Could it be an ending diagonal? Yeah, it can be an ending diagonal because it's a 5th. Right? So this is a point. So let me get that on here. Yeah. So could this be an ending diagonal? Right, so this is something that's come up in the room recently. So let me change the degrees here so this makes a little more sense. So we can evaluate this. Okay, so if that's, and this would go to a smaller degree, bear with me here. Let's go down so it's not out of whack with relative degrees. Okay, if we've got, so this 4 pattern, 1, 2. So this the fact that holds implies that's the 4th, that we don't overlap. But that certainly could be A, B, and C. So we're getting the same thing here, right? Patterns tend to repeat. So the fact that we're seeing that, this is either, we've got the 4 here. You see, it can play either way. This is the frustrating part of what's happening both here and in Bitcoin. So look at that. Now, if this is the A wave and this is the B wave and this is the C wave, well then this would be potentially a diagonal putting in a 1 wave. You see how we have both alternates here? So let's just, for the sake of discussion, so we'll do one at a time. If that's the 4, on the assumption that holding the wave 1 high implies the 4th, then I've got a 1, 2. Well, then this would have to be a diagonal. If it's a diagonal, the expectation is that we're going to get a 1 here, a 2, an A, B, C into the 3rd. We come down for the 4th. 4th cannot overlap the 2nd, but we're going to look for a relationship between the swing low here up to the 3 high. We've yet to make the 50. So you have this as a contender for a diagonal. So if we're going to come down to get the diagonal, it would look something like that. So how does that line up here? Well, here's the first algo target. So again, in a diagonal, because of the overlap of the 4 to the 1, we draw from the low of it, potential low of it, right? What we're analyzing here as a potential diagonal, we take the length of the 1, the length of the low, the start of the 1, to the high of the potential 3rd, looking for the 4th to be somewhere around the 50. That would be ideal. We can't go too much deeper here. This starts to break the symmetry here. If we come down and we test, while technically that can happen, you'd want to see this hold right here at the 50, right? So that's where there's going to be algo buying there. They're not trading an Elliott count. They don't give a shit. They're going to buy the 50 with that as the target. Okay, so we're trying to get in and weave around what they're likely to do. So here's dominant swing, dominant swing. There's going to be a reaction at that 50. Can they hold it? Well, we don't know. But if it's going to play as a diagonal, you got to look at that and say, well, could that work as a diagonal? Well, that would kind of set us up for a double top up here for the 5th. So a contender. But so this is kind of why we're in no man's land here, where we really can't be terribly definitive about either scenario because we have multiple paths here that could play out and still be valid. So if we're operating on the assumption this is a 3rd, right, and we can't be certain about that. Let me take that off. So here's the other scenario that we get this, which is just like we had here. Okay, would that make sense? Well, let's measure it. So if I look for this, right, so potentially there's the 4th. So then I would pull here. If that's my 4, then I'm just putting in the 1. So here I am at the 618. So how would that work? Well, we'd have this. We'd have this is more bullish. We'd have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if that's going to be a diagonal, yet again, does this it kind of all sets us up for a challenge up here at these highs if we're going to stay bullish, if the 4th isn't going to overlap the 2nd. You see that? So we're right there. We've just tested the 618. Does it hold? And we've got this channel support here lined up as well. Remains to be seen, because that could play as either one. Both scenarios, are not terribly bullish. I mean, the most wildly bullish scenario would be that this is all setting up as a one wave. Could be. Now, here, let's look at the other alternate, which we've got to look at as a reality. So we have this. Let me take that off. We have this as the other alternative. And, guys, I mean, the point of doing this, every one of these. So if you had an Ethereum dollar set up on TradingView, I'd have I'd go to 4 charts and have each as an alternative, so that you can say, well, which one's it following? Because we can't be sure. There's no way for us to know. Here's the other alternative that we got to accept. Now, this is the ultra bearish. Top is in. Here's the A wave. Here's the B wave. C wave coming down here. Got to consider it. It certainly plays. We know a B wave can go as high as the 786. That's not uncommon. Now, just looking at that, so first thing we're going to do is put a pitchfork on it and say, well, do I have some market geometry there that could help? Does that help me? Look at that. A failure to make the median line implies weakness. It sets up for potentially a move equal to or greater than the move that failed to get there, which would push us down here to retest this low. So then we get the subdivision here, of course. We get just like Bitcoin. We had A, B, and then we get a C. So if I put that, change that degree, that's the ugly count, right? So there's their target down here. Can't rule it out. That means the top is in, at least for this 5-wave structure. If the top is in, now we're pulling from the absolute, if that's a completed 5-wave structure of the largest degree. Let's just consider that for a second. If that's complete, what do we got to do? Well, we got to pull from the absolute low. So where would be the next trade? If that's going to play here, and we're complete, we're pulling from the absolute. I got to go. The 8-hour doesn't catch it. I got to go to the 12. Let's see that. We got to go from the absolute low. Apparently, I got to go to the daily to get it. That's how far back we've got to go. Okay, so let me get that lined up. Okay, here's our absolute low. So just on the assumption that high is in, we've completed this 5-wave structure. We're going to go all the way to the top. Now, granted, it's distorted. So we're looking for a 2-wave. Where's the 2 start? Likely path would be at the 50. That's 719. Right? That's not a disaster. So could this be a completed 5-wave structure? So in the largest degree here, we will have completed. It's possible. I don't think so. I think we've still got. I think this is likely completing here, but we've got another 4 or 5 to go. That's my opinion, and take it for what it's worth. But if I come back here, let me go back to the 4-hour. All of these scenarios play. So there's the completed thing. Here's the 50, right, that I just pulled on the daily. Does that look, radically out of potential scenario? No, not at all. Here would be the 618. So it's not the death of crypto. We're just seeing major bull markets of 2017 being corrected. That's what it appears it's happening. Let me put this. Right. So again, there's a little bit of puzzle solving here, trying to find what works, what are the likely scenarios here. So there's a little structural support there. Is it going to hold? Well, there's still, this is a key pivot. We want to watch these to see if these pivots are being violated. If this gets violated, that tells me something. If this gets violated, that tells me something as well. But we certainly have to look at that as a potential roadmap. So if I put the wave on that, right, you see how that certainly hard to argue with that as a potential path to come down here and have corrected the entire move, the entire from low to high. Here's the 50, 717. Here's the algo target, 616. Not unreasonable. Right? We're so used to the market just continuing to go up that it can really distort our view. You got to try and be objective and say what could be happening. Could this be complete? Is this 345? Does this make sense? We're going to know pretty soon, right? So it's not surprising at all that if this tops here and Bitcoin is going to continue to push to new lows, right? As we just looked at the Bitcoin chart, it's likely going to pull Ethereum with it. We shall see. Significant pivot, potential double bottom. Here's the 50 from the absolute low. right? All scenarios that you have to consider. So all of these markets are kind of in a wait and see. We can't be too absolute about anything because there's been so much of a bullish move. Look how this lines up, right? So you've got all of this down here potentially lining up for some geometry. You got all sorts of scenarios that can play out here, all just part of correcting the 2017 bull market. If we were to see that, I promise you I'll be a buyer there. All right, guys, I wish I could give you a nice, sweet, clean, easy trade. It's just not there. Right now, this is let the correction unfold, play some defense, trade carefully. This is when fear is the dominant emotion, right? At some point, greed will take over. All right, guys, that's it for now.